My final thoughts on Bills versus Browns, an injury update with banged up Bills, and my 5 predictions for Sunday are all coming your way today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Locked On Bills is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Well, folks, welcome in. It's our last conversation before the Bills head to Cleveland and play the Cleveland Browns with the opportunity to improve to 11-4. And so I want to start with some closing thoughts on this contest and get into a couple of newsy items. Of course, the Bills have a new kicker for this game, and there's a defensive end that's become available that I know many people are interested in, and I want to share my thoughts on that. But let's start with just this last thought that I have on Bills versus Browns. And really, I want to get into what's the Browns' path to win the game. The Bills are heavy road favorites, double-digit road favorites. The Browns are a team that have millions of injuries. They're playing a bunch of rookies, and it's not been a good year for them. But there's a football game that's going to be played on Sunday, and someone's going to win it. It should be the Bills, but what is the Browns' path to winning? And obviously that path starts with a really good defense. Not just like an okay defense, but one of the best defenses in the league. All of the metrics support it. You watch them play. It's a good unit. It's a talented unit. They've got, big time players at really every spot. And that's step one of the Browns being able to win this game, is leveraging that really good defense against a Bills offense that's also really good. But it's a home game for Cleveland. They have a really good defense with a lot of A-list players across the board and a good coach in Jim Schwartz. Then you just kind of take that and feel like, all right, they can contain the Bills, maybe get a takeaway or two. Your offense doesn't beat itself. They can make a couple of plays, right? That's what they have to be thinking. Don't beat yourself on offense, right? Don't turn over the ball. Play some good defense and see what happens. Now, I don't think this is going to work out for Cleveland. I think the Bills are going to win this game. The Bills are a really strong team in December. We know what's at stake. Certainly the Bills want to stay alive in the race for the division. They want to maximize their seeding in the AFC playoffs. I don't think the Bills are going to take Cleveland for granted and get caught looking ahead to the Eagles next week. But again, there's a football game that needs to be played, and I think that defense, not making mistakes on offense, staying in it and seeing what happens, is what Cleveland's going to cling to for their script to win this football game. But the Bills need to show up, make the plays they're supposed to make, and put them away and get out of there with a win. Now, the Bills will have to navigate this game with a new kicker. Matt Prater not available, has a quad injury to his kicking leg. And so the Bills will now be on their third kicker of the season. Michael Badgley was signed to the practice squad this week. The Bills released cornerback MJ Devonshire to make room. And Badgley steps in. He's 30 years old, entered the league in 2018 as an undrafted free agent out of Miami. Has kicked for the Chargers, Titans, Colts, Bears, and Lions. Has made 116 of 139 field goals for his career, 83.1%. He actually kicked for the Colts this year for most of the season. He went 10 of 11 on field goals, 18 of 21 on extra points. And then they released him after he missed a big-time extra point in Week 13. They lost to the Texans. And so, look, we're talking about an NFL season entering week 16. A lot of teams have been through multiple kickers. I feel like this is probably as reasonable of an option as you can hope for under these circumstances. What I like about Badgley is that at least he's been kicking this year in the NFL. It's not like he's not been in game situations. He's been in them this month, right? He's been part of it, which I think helps. Are my expectations high for him? No. Do I think the Bills should default aggressive? Like, should they go for it on 4th and 4 instead of a 45-yard field goal attempt? Yes, absolutely. But, you know, if you need that shorter field goal to change the math, right? Whether make it a multiple possession game, maybe to win the game, extra points, all those types of things, you need someone that can be functional. And Michael Badgley, you know, I mean, he is functional, right? He's made 83% of his kicks for his career, 10 of 11 this year. So I think this is probably as good of a resolution as you can hope for. And obviously, you hope that Matt Prater is good to go and he gets back to doing what he's been doing, because that guy's made 90% of his field goals this year, which is really good. I have a level of confidence in Matt Prater, and so I'm excited for him to get back. The Dolphins released Matthew Judon, veteran defensive end. He's cleared waivers and he's free to sign with any team. Now, Matthew Judon certainly had a good career. He's been a good player in the league, but he hadn't done much lately. The last few years, he's pretty much laid an egg, and he's rough. He was really rough this year so far. And so, yeah, I don't have like a lot of excitement about the potential of adding Matthew Judon, but I'm also not against it, to be honest with you. And really, it doesn't say as much about my interest in Matthew Judon as it does the situation for the Bills at defensive end. I'm tired of seeing TJ Sanders, a player the Bills drafted in the high second round and traded up to get, to literally play interior defensive line to be a penetration style 3 technique. I don't want to see him playing defensive end, especially with Ed Oliver not available. And right now, that's, you know, he's taking snaps. The Bills are going to play 4 or 5 defensive ends any week. And not only do you need that just for your normal rotation, but you want to probably limit Joey Bosa as much as you can. And so Matthew Judon is probably a reasonably good idea to get TJ Sanders potentially more in his regular role, is the role that's ideal for him, and then maybe take a little bit off of Bosa. But again, Matthew Judon's, he's been rough. I mean, the tape's not good. 33, he's probably washed. And so I can take it or leave it, but I think you can kind of point to the circumstances that the Bills have at defensive end and realize that there is a pretty clear path to Matthew Judon to being able to help, right? And probably some air quotes necessary help. I don't expect him to come in and be the guy he was 4 or 5 years ago. But can he take some snaps and that potentially lead to positive results for TJ Sanders and Joey Bosa? Yeah. So why not? All right, coming up next, Dr. Kyle Trimble of Banged Up Bills. There's a lot to get into with Bills injuries, just like there has been all year. So we'll do that here next. Folks, be sure to stick with me. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994, and with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why the Game Time app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you could track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. You pull up the app, and the layout makes it so simple to scroll through the matchups and compare seat views. You can pick a game, tap a section, and have your tickets locked in within minutes. No confusion, no hunting for fine print. And the prices include fees up front, which I love. There's no last-second surprises at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets and every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your purchase at Game Time. I'm joined now by Kyle Trimble. He's a doctor of physical therapy. He runs bangedupbills.com. You can follow him on social media at bangedupbills. He gets us ready each week for the upcoming Bills game from an injury perspective, and we have some stuff to talk about this week. It's been a bit of a journey as these reports have been very fluid, but we have the final report. We're going to talk about it right now. 3 players are ruled out for this game. Kicker Matt Prater with a right quad. Jordan Phillips, the defensive tackle, with an ankle injury. Of course, that happened during the game. We saw him leave early. And then Chase Lunt, who is out with a knee injury that was sustained in practice on Thursday. We know that they're not going to go, but just your thoughts on maybe the outlook on these three different situations.
So, like you said, with Lunt, has suffered in practice. Don't know the extent of it. Don't know which side. The only notable thing with him is that he had an ACL tear in college, but we don't know that is anything going on with it. It could just been sprained MCL, and he's going to take week to week. The fact that he hasn't played at all yet this year and he's been healthy, scratch every week, suggests that he can go to IR because they have some other guys they can bring back. Unless they tell us more what happened, it's just a guess other than it's a knee. So not really a whole lot lost there with Lunt being out this week. As for Phillips, he did suffer the injury sometime in the second quarter. I can't remember the exact time, but it looked like he initially got stepped on, and then a little back through the replay, he took a funny step and then immediately started hopping on the left leg. Some of the video angles suggested it might have been a little ankle sprain, and he was questionable return. He did have the ankle taped up, like he potentially could have returned, and he was walking off the field okay when he was jogging with fans in the tunnel. But then he was seen in the boot afterward, and then he was quickly ruled out during Monday's press conference there. So I didn't see a mechanism for a high ankle sprain. Low ankle sprain wouldn't keep a guy out like this unless they had some other problems with this that we were unaware of. So I don't have a good read on what the injury is, which means it's hard for me to tell you what the timeline is. Considering they have the depth, some depth at the defensive tackle position with Federian Mathis and some other guys they can call up and whatnot, might as well let the old guy rest and get him ready for the playoffs, because he has shown flashes, especially during the playoffs. And then finally, Prater, he was definitely the biggest surprise of those 3 that were rolled out this week. Looking through the film, it looked like it was the last kick for the kickoff. I don't know that the kickoff was any shorter than the other ones there. They do plan to kick on a certain distance, and they're very, specific with what they want to do there. I think it landed like the 10-yard line, and then they ran off to the left. And then the thing with him was that he didn't really get involved in the play. Like, he kind of held back. I don't know exactly how he would hurt the quad to begin with, because this is his kicking side. He kicked and he lands his right side, and I don't know if he corrected and landed funny, or if he struck the ground a little bit coming up, and maybe that's why the ball was a little bit short. I don't know quite what went into the kick, because we only have the view from the back, and then the broadcast view doesn't really show a good angle on how he kicks it. But he hops at the very end going off the field. He kind of just hops a little bit on the left leg and then kind of walks off there. So there's not a ton of research out there to support how long he's going to be out. Given his age and everything else, they're not going to rush him back. The only stuff I could find was that kickers and punters miss on average 2 weeks with a lower extremity injury. Older kickers, 30 plus, do miss 21 days, which is 3 weeks. It's convenient that we have 3 games left. We signed Michael Badgley to the practice squad. So if they need to use him for the last 3 games, let the guy rest. We know that Tyler Bass isn't coming back. And then hopefully Prater can come back and, kick in the postseason and be accurate.
It's interesting looking at those 3 situations. First of all, that Sean McDermott on Monday rules out Jordan Phillips and Matt Prater. I don't really recall something like that happening under Sean McDermott. So quick trigger on those. Obviously, when you're going to be working out kickers, it's probably a pretty big tell. But, I'm surprised that they went ahead and did that with Jordan Phillips. But ultimately, Phi Mathis probably going to get a big opportunity here to play in relief of Jordan Phillips. And of course, Michael Badgley is the answer for Matt Prater. The Chase Lunt situation to me smells like, hey, we need to stash him. Like, they got Grable back off of injured reserve. They have 10 rostered offensive linemen. They're potentially going to have a spot for Mecole Hardman, who has been practicing all week. He practiced in full twice this week. And if they want him back, maybe that's their path to getting that roster spot. So I don't know that there's anything big with Lunt. This definitely feels like, how do we not waive you and get a roster spot? So stash him on injured reserve. That's what I think is going on there. There are two players that are questionable. I kind of talked a little bit about wide receiver Mecole Hardman, who has been dealing with a calf injury, limited participant Wednesday, practice in full Thursday and Friday. He's listed as questionable for the game. And then there's Cam Lewis, who is questionable for the game with a hamstring deal that's limited him Thursday and Friday. Sean McDermott initially said that Cam Lewis wasn't going to practice on Friday, and then he practiced in a limited capacity. So maybe a good sign for how things are trending there. But your thoughts on the questionable statuses for Hardman and Cam Lewis?
Hardman would be a nice addition. I mean, I know that they've stabilized the special teams in terms of kick and punt return. But Hardman did, I believe, get hurt on the punt return. He injured his left calf during the Buccaneers game. And he had told Dick Sabato of the Niagara Gazette that he originally thought he bruised the calf and then realized it was getting worse. And he was downgraded and couldn't finish the game that time and then put on injury reserve. So glad to see he's back and healthy. He needs to be activated to the roster in order to play, which is what we talked about earlier with potentially Lunt going to injury reserve. So we'll wait to see what happens with him, but he'd be a nice addition, both as depth and on special teams. That's for Lewis. We see another practice injury, and I know plenty of social media has been up in arms about that. They do happen. It's part of them. You have to play the game and practice and do the actual things. You can't just sit around and do nothing during the week and then expect to go out and play full bore. We see even more injuries because you're not stressing the guys and running at the full speed. You need to get the timing down and everything else with that. So it's unfortunate, but given the temperature, the late season soft tissue stuff, I would sit him. I mean, I think might have Dane Jackson as another call up. I can't remember where he's at with the call ups, but get somebody else in there. He does a lot more special teams in depth, but this could be another opportunity for Jordan Hancock to get some more reps there too if Lewis is going to be out there. But I don't see how he plays, especially with the practice injury, which they've been about 50% on whether they play or not historically.
Darnell Savage, another name to keep him in mind as a potential guy that could get some run defensively this week, who's on the active roster, kind of fills that hybrid safety slot type role. No other player has a designation. There's two questionables. There's three players ruled out, but I do want to get into this Dalton Kincaid situation where hamstring initially caused him to miss games. Then he has a knee flare up. And since he's come back, right, a couple of games, the snap count's been pretty low. He didn't practice on Wednesday or Thursday. He was seen in the weight room on Thursday, practiced in full on Friday. He has no game day designation. So my expectation is that he will play. But Sean McDermott talked about this pretty extensively relative to Sean McDermott discussing injuries and basically said, our goal with him right now is to be cautious and get him to game day. And obviously there's something going on with this PCL flare up that has to be managed. That's limiting him. But obviously, he's a really good player that can help this offense. They're being very measured with this situation. So how are you piecing this all together as it relates to Kincaid and the knee?
I think what happened was, just to go back and quick recap here, injured against Indianapolis Colts week 10, lands on the knee, and then misses 3 games. And then he comes back and he gutted out the rest of the season playing through the injury. And even at that time frame, it wasn't going to get fully healed, but healthy enough to play. And then he had that Morale Laval lesion, if I can't, and I'm awful with French pronunciations, but that's besides the point. So he gutted out the rest of the season, gets healthy in the off season. And then during training camp, he has a collision with Christian Benford and Matt Milano at like the first few days of training camp. And they really kind of made no big deal about it. And we didn't even see him wearing that hinged knee brace there. So it was like, okay, no big deal. We know that it was something because Sean McDermott made mention of it later on, especially when this popped back up there. So when he popped up on the injury report with the knee, they mentioned it got flared up during his hamstring rehab, and he highlighted that they also aggravated at some point during training camp, which we know when that happened. So we know that sometimes with ligament injuries, there can be some mild laxity in there, but you can still function, perform, and have stability you need to. That goes for multiple different joints there. So we don't know how that knee flared up with his hamstring rehab. I mean, he could have fell on it because that's the mechanism of injury for that. He could have hyperextended the knee a little bit. We don't know exactly what happened with it, but it was enough that it got everything all angry there. He's going to have to try to get it out, like McDermott said. And this isn't anything that the training staff did wrong or that, McDermott or Kincaid did wrong or anything else there. Sometimes you take care of an injury, you get healthy, and then something just sets it off again, and it just doesn't work as well as you wanted to. So you can have the best rehab possible. You can have the best ACL rehab, you can best rotator cuff rehab, and then something happens and it ruins everything. And it's like, man, come on, we did all this work and it sucks, but sometimes that's how it is there. So I wish we knew more information as to what caused this flare up there. But at this point, there's probably some chronic laxity in there, and they're just trying to get through the end of the season to get him hopefully hoisting the Lombardi Trophy. But wherever he ends up at there, and I can see a scenario where they maybe try to do some surgery or some other interventions to try to get that knee healthy, because we don't see this thing getting better, especially with this being as long as it is there. So I think this injury will definitely impact how they manage PCL injuries in the future, because previous PCL management has been Harrison Phillips back in 2021, I believe it was, and he played through the season, was fine. And then Gabe Davis suffered that PCL injury at the end of 2023, missed the playoffs. And then we saw him fully tear it when he was with Jacksonville, along with his meniscus. But he had said in an interview previously, Davis, that the knee was never right after that. So I can see them saying that, hey, if it's looking like this, maybe we look at towards surgery in the off season and kind of get this stuff taken care of rather than let things linger. So hindsight's 2020 with all this stuff. It sucks, but this is how they learn to get better as a staff and identify where they need to do surgery, or maybe where they can be more conservative. But surgery is not always the answer for every guy, but maybe in this case that it is, so they can put this behind them once and for all.
What's the timetable if there is this surgery for the PCL in the offseason? Is this something that is a relatively quick recovery, or are we going to be talking about the PUP list and all those types of things for the start of camp?
It depends on how far the Bills go. Hopefully they're going into mid-February, and there could be a chance for that. The timeline is 6 to 9 months, I believe, if I recall, when I did my Gabe Davis article. And of course, there could always be complications. There could be additional damage we're not aware of. I mean, there could be some meniscus issues in there. There could be other things going on. So it could be a chance that there could be a PUP list thing. But at the end of the day, if we get to the Super Bowl AFC Championship game and that pushes that timeline a little bit, you know what? That's why they have those lists available, so that we can set the roster spots there. But I'd rather have them get that taken care of and then not have to worry about it. And then he can actually excel as a pass catcher instead of everybody always wondering why he's sitting out, because he wants to play. It just, his body physically won't let him. And that's why they're having to manage his reps during the week so he can get out there and play on Sunday and hopefully be effective.
Yeah. If that surgery prevents us from being in this spot late in the season where you're just trying to get your best, pass catching weapon to game day, yeah, that's probably a very good choice, but we'll leave that to the pros. And Dr. Kyle, thank you for coming on, sharing some of your expertise. Christmas will pass by the next time I speak to you, so Merry Christmas, and appreciate everything that you offer us here on this podcast.
Absolutely. Merry Christmas to you, Joe, and your family, and everybody else at Bills Mafia, and go Bills.
This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The holiday season is one of the best times for sports. Big bowl games, big basketball matchups, playoff pushes. It's all happening at once. And while we're all making choices every day, one of the most fun places to make the right call is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. You just pick more or less on at least 2-player projections. You lock in your lineup, and you're in the game. It's simple, it's fast, and it's available in 45 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Prize Picks can add that extra layer of excitement to the holiday sports schedule. You can create a lineup in less than a minute, and the app's going to make the whole process smooth and intuitive. And I love that you can choose from a huge range of unique stats, including fantasy score, field goals attempted, free throws made, turnovers, whatever fits your strategy. And the deposits and withdrawals are quick and easy, which keeps everything flowing. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. All right, folks, welcome back. It is prediction time here on the podcast. I have 5 of them for you today. Let's reveal those right now. Number 1, I'm expecting a pretty big game from Khalil Shakir out of the slot. When I consider this Browns defense and where it's strong, where it's weak, where I find the biggest matchup advantage for Buffalo is in the slot with Khalil Shakir against their slot corner, who's missing a high rate of tackles. He's allowing a completion percentage of 75%. He's given up 5 touchdowns. He's given up a passer rating of 120.4. Well, this should be a Khalil Shakir heavy game. So put me down for 5 or more catches and 50 or more yards for Khalil Shakir in this game. Number 2, let's talk a little Miles Garrett. Of course, everyone knows that's what's at stake for him. He gets 1.5 sacks. He sets a new NFL record for sacks in a single season. I don't think he does it. I don't think he does it against the Bills. So put me down for Miles Garrett not breaking the record in this game. I think he might get 1. He might get a half a sack. I just feel like the Bills will have some intentionality about not letting this happen. And you certainly don't want the freak that is Miles Garrett tackling Josh Allen, right? You just not right now. And I'm not going to promise you that he's not going to make some plays and have a huge impact, but I think there's going to be a lot of intent from the Bills to not put Josh in those situations. So help for Deion Dawkins, Deion handling it, rollouts, quick passes, all of the above to prevent Miles Garrett from getting it done this week. So I don't think he breaks the record this week. He'll do it at some point this year, but not this week. Number 3, put me down for a Greg Rousseau sack. Feel like this is a really ripe opportunity against either of these tackles, Cam Robinson or KT Leviston. Shedeur Sanders pressured a ton, right? A 50% pressure rate, very sackable quarterback, holds onto the ball for a long time. I think Greg Rousseau gets a sack in this game. Speaking of Shedeur Sanders, that gets me to number 4. FanDuel currently has his over-under for passing yards in this game at 177.5. I am hitting the under on that. The Bills have only given up more than 178 passing yards 5 times in 14 games. And those quarterbacks were Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Drake May, and Michael Penix. Now, obviously, the outlier there is Michael Penix, and I'll be honest with you, that Atlanta loss is going to eat me alive for a long time. That's a soft football team with a bad quarterback, and the Bills laid an egg. That's the one. I don't love a 30-13 loss to Miami, but at least it's a division opponent on the road. I hated the loss at home to New England, trust me. That doesn't make me happy. But friggin' Atlanta, that soft football team, don't like it. That's the one that doesn't set well with me. But anyways, I don't think that Shedeur Sanders joins this company of quarterbacks that goes for more than 178 passing yards. I don't think much of his supporting cast, his offensive line. We're expected to get some wind in Cleveland. The Bills are a pretty good pass defense. I don't think Shedeur Sanders is going to go out there and throw for over 177.5 yards. So Khalil Shakir, 5-50. No sack record for Miles Garrett. Greg Rousseau gets a sack. Shedeur Sanders under 177.5 passing yards. I think the Bills win this game. I think they take care of their business. Is it potentially going to be an annoying game? Yeah, that's possible. Where it's like a 10-7 game or something like that in the third quarter. Then eventually the Bills will pull ahead. That's kind of my expectation. But get out of there with a win. Get out of there healthy. And let's get ready for these last 2 of the regular season at home against Philly and then the Jets. So there you have it, folks. The hay is in the barn. We've done all we can to get ready for Bills-Browns in Week 16. The only thing that's left to do is for the Bills to go out there and win the game. We'll have tons of post-game coverage, including Bill Squad, right after the conclusion of the game, and then all the stuff that we do next week to wrap up that Browns game and then get ready for heavyweight fight at Orchard Park. Bills-Eagles. We'll get ready for that next week. But first up, Bills-Browns. So don't miss anything. Make sure that you're subscribed. Would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills, and I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.